President, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. President. You already talked. Mr. President, the other day you said that you were not responsible for the testing shortfall. Very simple question. Does the buck stop with you? And on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your response to this crisis?
I'd rate it a 10. I think we've done a great job. And it started with the fact that we kept a very highly infected country, despite all of even the professionals saying, no, it's too early to do that. We were very, very early with respect to China. And we would have a whole different situation in this country if we didn't do that. I would rate it I would rate ourselves and the professionals. I think the professionals have done a fantastic job. As far as the testing, you heard the Admiral. I think the testing that we've done, we really took over an obsolete system, or put it maybe in a different way, a system that wasn't meant to do anything like this. We took it over, and we're doing something that's never been done in this country. And I think that we are doing very well. We took the system, we worked with the system we had, and we broke down the system purposely. We broke it down in order to do what we're doing now. And within a short period of time, and even now, we're testing tremendous numbers of people.
Does the buck stop with you, Mr. President? Does the buck stop with you?
Yeah, normally, but I think when you hear this has never been done before in this country. If you look back, take a look at some of the things that took place in 09 or 11 or whatever it may have been. They never did. Nobody's ever done anything like what we're doing. Now, I will also say, Admiral, I think we can say that we're also getting this ready for the future, so that when we have a future problem, if and when, and hopefully we don't have anything like this, but if there is, we're going to be starting off from a much higher plateau.
Now, before we dive into this, I feel like this is a perfect opportunity to bring up a tweet from Donald Trump himself in 2013, where he wrote, "Leadership, whatever happens, you're responsible. If it doesn't happen, you're responsible." How times have changed between that and this.
Does the buck stop with you, Mr. President? Does the buck stop with you?
Yeah, normally, but I think when you hear this has never been done before in this country.
Now, as for his 10 out of 10 rating, that's pretty generous considering that it was his administration that declined the WHO tests that were distributed over a month ago to over 60 nations, opting instead to let the CDC create its own test, which was rolled out with a slew of issues. And so while other countries like South Korea were busy testing over 250,000 people, while they were learning immediately who had it so they could isolate those people and contain the spread, we were listening to Trump downplay its severity. We were listening to Trump invoke words like Democrats' new hoax during campaign rallies. We were listening to conservative media screech about how this was a hysterical ploy by the left to sink their president. We were derided for taking this seriously, while Trump swore we'd already seen the worst of it and that the numbers were already on their way down.
And the 15 within a couple of days is going to be down to close to zero. We're going down, not up. We're going very substantially down, not up.
So if that's a 10 out of 10, what's a 7? Not licking handrails? Now, Trump says that he sealed the border with respect to China and acts as if he solved the problem. But our cases are growing exponentially. You don't get to take a victory lap when our response has objectively been among the worst in the world. We're one of the only countries that still hasn't been able to achieve anything close to large-scale testing. So Trump might revel in the fact that the number of cases isn't that high, but that's not the result of the spread being contained. It's the result of no testing. It's the result of pure ignorance. And I get that that's where Trump thrives, but that's not a good strategy when actual lives are at stake. And of course, he tries to blame this on past administrations because even now, 3 years into his term, if anything goes wrong, clearly the fault lies with Obama. And so he's begun repeating this talking point that the system that had been put in place presented all of these barriers. But A, Trump's been president since January 2017. He's had more than 3 years to fix this. The quote, system has been right under his nose. And so the responsibility lies with him, not Barack Obama, to make sure it's working, not after a pandemic, but before. And B, the system actually did work fine with Trump's predecessor. Obama presided over 3 pandemics, H1N1 in 2009, Ebola in 2014, and Zika in 2016. And none turned into the large-scale catastrophes that occurred under Trump. And that's owed largely to the fact that Obama wasn't acting solely for political purposes, which, tends to help in a global pandemic. And he took the advice of experts, the same experts whose positions Trump eliminated, including Tim Ziemer, the senior director of global health security at the National Security Council, who had been described as one of the most quietly effective leaders in global health. Tom Bossert, Homeland Security advisor on the NSC who coordinated the response to global pandemics, and Dr. Luciana Borio, the NSC's director for medical and biodefense preparedness. He even ordered the NSC's entire global health security unit shut down. And then he cut funding to the CDC's epidemic prevention programs in 39 out of 49 countries, including China. So Trump can pretend that this was unprecedented and that there was no way we could have foreseen this, but we average multiple pandemics a decade. What's unprecedented is totally annihilating our defenses in order to reroute money to inane agenda items. Because, shockingly, it doesn't seem like that tax cut for corporations and billionaires that drove us into inescapable debt is doing much for the economy now that we actually need a stimulus, is it? But truly, the most stunning statement of all is Trump claiming that he's just trying to make sure we're prepared for the future. That he's not just working so hard to protect us, but to protect all future Americans, which clearly is just so noble and selfless of the guy. If I could suggest something while we're on the subject of helping future generations, maybe don't fire every global health expert on the government's payroll, and then once we're neck deep in a global pandemic, bring on Jared Kushner to solve it. Maybe don't pretend it doesn't exist. Maybe don't decline tests when they're offered and available. Maybe don't downplay the pandemic as a political ploy from across the aisle. I'd say those should be a pretty good place to start if we are actually looking to help future generations.